Hello, and welcome to today's edition of A Walk in My Shoes. My name is Kayla Powell, and I'll be your host. And today we have with us.
Thank you.
So, Frank, for those who might not know what a senior database administrator is, could you tell us a little bit about what your role is, maybe what your day to day looks like?
I'm sure, happy to. A database administrator, think of it as the guy that controls the filing cabinet or controls the data on the side that an application would use. Most of the application systems out on the internet are web-based, but the web-based uses a data platform or a database in some way, shape, or form for it to function. Applications move data in and out of the database. They update it, append it. So think of it just like your email. If your email account, you need to use your username and then your password, and then it logs you in and lets you get access to your email. Well, on the other side of that is a database. Somewhere, in some way, shape, or form, there's a database there. There's a lot of different database servers or systems out there. I focus mainly in Microsoft SQL Server, but I have exposure to Oracle. I've had Teradata, a couple of those, and I've done some of the online shareware, whatever you want to call it, freeware databases as well. But that system is designed to hold information, keep it in a certain format, make sure it's quality, and it lets you search. It lets you, maintain. You can run reporting off of it. It's a lot of different aspects of databases. My day-to-day, I manage nearly 100 database servers in my current company, which is retail. Of that, it's a split between our development environment, which is where teams will add new functionality, test different things, build different features or functions or reports. Then we have a QA space, which is a quality assurance space, where that's kind of where you finalize everything, you put it, and then you let a team of people come in and test it to make sure that what you move into your production environment, which is what everyone sees, is quality. It's done a good job. It's doing what you expect it to do, and you manage it. And I maintain the code migration between a development, QA space, and production. I also protect that environment. And when asked, my primary function as a database administrator is to mitigate risk and to make sure everything works. And I can get into deeper if you want me to.
Wow, well, that certainly sounds like a lot.
It is, but at the same time, it's kind of that, like driving your car. There's always that mindset. You're driving down the road and your eyes are always moving. You're always looking for something, but you're still heading in the same direction. You're moving from A to B. And if I do my job really well, no one talks to me. They're like, oh, it's working, no problem. It's when things go bad or when things don't go as expected that I'm usually called in, and I'm called in to help support the effort to get the business back up and running, to get someone their information, or to help fix a problem that was never seen. So it's just kind of that question. I got tons of stories about it, but we don't have enough time in the day to talk about them all.
So, it sounds like you have to have a lot of knowledge about databases and what could go wrong, and how do you fix that when it goes wrong? Because if something were to go down, they're looking at you. So, what type of education do you have?
Well, let's start from this. I started on my own. When I was a kid, I was a junior fireman in my community with my best friend David and his brother John. And a need came up where we were sending out donation stuff and all that, but we ended up computerizing it with some help of an extremely fantastic guy named Wayne Dreyer. Taught us everything we needed to know about a program called DBase. DBase was like the DOS version of a database in today's day and age. It was the foundation, the beginning of a data structure that was utilized in applications. I learned it then. I went to school for a little while, didn't do well in college when I was young, so I stopped. And through some life events, I got back into technology in a very kind of we call it drinking from the fire hose. You just got dumped into it. Someone turned us on and said, go learn this. And I was self-taught for a long while. But back in 2012, I decided that that wasn't sufficient. I wanted to get my bachelor's degree. And in the course of going to school, I guess it's okay. I went to Western Governors University. The reason I picked that school was because of the IT program and the bachelor's degree program I picked came with a lot of IT certifications. So not only did you have your bachelor's degree, you also had these IT certifications that told businesses, hey, he actually knows what he's doing and he's able to apply it. Now, I've been working in IT since 1998, right? But I have been overlooked for many a job and many a position because I didn't have my bachelor's. Even though I had certifications and I had all the skills and all the technology, I struggled really hard because of that bachelor's. And my wife, who's my best friend, was like, stop doing that. Go back to school. And she gave me that courage and that encouragement to go. And if I was going to tell somebody, is it important to go to college? It is. If you're going to get into IT, get your degree. Go, make the effort, do the bits. But don't expect to have this humongous job offer when you first walk out of IT. You're going to have to enter in as an entrance level person. But when you do that, you get to cut your teeth on important stuff. And I can talk to that if you want to. But education is good. I have my joke, I know 22 programming and scripting languages, and I can barely speak any foreign language to order food.
Wow. So definitely sounds like a bachelor's degree is needed in this field. Even to work your way up, to get in the door for an entry-level position.
No, you don't. Let me correct something. One, you can get in without a bachelor's degree. Let's be very honest. There's so many jobs. There's help desk jobs. There's entrance level programming jobs like I got. First company I worked for looked at my resume and went, why do you want an IT job? I was a paramedic firefighter. I had what little background I had in IT was in my parents' company, okay, or my own work. But a friend of mine gave me enough of a recommendation to the director of IT at a little company called White Castle to give me an entrance level job. And I went in and I knew I was going to struggle. My joke was that I'd been wearing a uniform for the last 10 years and I walked into a job that I needed to wear a suit and tie to work every day. And I owned 2 suits and that was a struggle. But the truth is you can get in without the degree. You can start. My recommendation is you can probably get into a job and go to college at the same time. I mean, I did it. I'm an example of someone who went and did it at night in my own time, but I worked a full-time job. I had 2 kids. And it was a pretty hefty schedule to lift, but I did it. I would tell you that if you're young and you don't have a full-time job yet, or if you have a full-time job, you can still do it. But if you can go to school and commit to school, I would do it now. Later on is tough, but now's good.
Awesome. And you mentioned those certificates. So you were not content with just working towards your bachelor's degree. You really went above and beyond and wanted those extra certificates to show that you did know what you were doing. Do you continue to further your education to this day? Do you stay up to date on new trends and new certificates that are coming out? What does that look like for you?
I'll say it this way. I started with my Microsoft SQL Server certifications 15 years ago. It's been a while. I originally got this is going to date me. I got certified in Windows NT, which is prior to 2000. I got a certificate in that. I got a programming certificate in Power Builder years back, which was a programming language. It still is to this day. There's still use for it. But I maintain the one that's actually the ones that are really critical to me. If I was to tell anyone what certifications to start with, there's what I call the trifecta. It's ones that government look at. It's one that big companies look at. It's CompTIA A+, CompTIA Security Plus, and CompTIA Network Plus. You have to get the A+ certification. to begin with, and basically it's a foundation in computers and operating systems and basic functionality of servers and desktops, laptops included. And then the Security Plus is understanding what it takes to secure it and why you don't open an email from someone you don't know and and whatnot. And then Network Plus is how we move information back and forth. And it really gives you a rounded understanding. You can get those 3 certifications and find a job in a help desk or any support role or an infrastructure role within anywhere. And it's not just here in Columbus. Columbus has got a tremendous IT market, and it's one of the strongest in the nation. But you can go anywhere with this. And the way COVID's working right now, a lot of remote jobs are out there for people that can talk, communicate well, can troubleshoot, problem solve. And back to where you were saying about how you figure out something, use a scientific step-by-step method. You don't make assumptions. And if you have to make an assumption, to a Ronald Reagan statement, you test it. You test your assumptions.
All right. Well, that's awesome to know, and great information for our youth that are watching, our youth and young adults, for those 3 different certificates that he definitely recommends if you want to get started. We can definitely post those in the comments for you guys. So moving forward, Frank, how did you know that IT was your calling? It sounds like you had your hand in a different career there for a while. How did you know, okay, IT, that's really where I want to be?
The truth was at first I had a lot of reservations. I had an accident. I was on medical leave, and my best friend was like, hey, since you're off for 45 days, why don't you come up here? And I was living in Pennsylvania. I'm a Pittsburgher, born and raised in Western Pennsylvania. So, you might catch it in my accent here and there. But my best friend David was like, hey, and he was working in IT. He's like, come on up to Ohio, hang out with me, get some time away. Don't think about all that. And I was stressing out pretty bad. So I came, and he was doing something on his computer, and he said something out loud, and I said something back to him in a challenge statement of, hey, think about it this way. And he looked at me and he goes, I'm telling you, you're in the wrong field. You should be in IT. Stop pretending like you're not an IT guy. You need to look at jobs here. You make more money, you'll work less hours. And that was kind of that deciding factor. I was working about 70 hours a week, and I was not, and that was just to make ends meet. So I was living paycheck to paycheck, doing something that people consider the hero thing, but I wasn't making enough money to really live. I come up to Ohio, I'm on medical leave. I chose to stay. I took a risk. I stayed, and I don't regret anything of it. Within a year, I was making close to what I was making, if not exactly making what I was making, working 70 hours a week, working 45 hours a week. Now, IT guys, you're going to work more than 40 hours a week. Guess what? It's just the way it is. But the thing is about when you love what you're doing and you're passionate about what you're doing, you don't actually realize you're working that much because it's fun. There's some enjoyment in it. And if you're not having enjoyment, look for a different position within the same field. It may be that you just picked the wrong thing or you're stuck in something and you have time. You're young. You have time. I didn't start my IT career until I was nearly 30 years old. Okay, so I may look a little younger than I am, but I'm over 50 and I've been doing this for 23 years. So the reality is that I love what I'm doing because I find a lot of challenging thought processes in it, the troubleshooting. But I'm more of an architect now. Way back when, I was writing code, I was finding little things to do, making things work better. Now in IT, I really am the guy that's paid for what he knows and not all of what he's doing. But when I was younger, it was, hey, can you do this? Sure. Or I'll give it a try. I'll do my best. And that's just the way it is. So coming up through it, I picked it because I was good at it. And I figured out I was good at it pretty quickly. And then I was really surprised at the kind of money I could make using my head instead of breaking my back. And and not that my parents own a service industry business. They do construction work. They have great employees, some fantastic people, but not everybody's for IT. Some people, and healthcare workers and whatnot, it's different. It's a different industry, but you're still providing a service of some capacity. So that's where I see it is. I'm still providing service to millions of people around the world, and I'm enjoying
Yes.
it.
Awesome. So, would you consider your current role or being in database administration? Do you think this is your dream job? Would you consider it your dream career?
It isn't my dream job. Okay.
Okay.
The idea is that I have aspirations for myself to run my own department one day. I've had teams where I've been, supervisor or managing, and I've worked on big teams where I'm the senior guy, and I've been on teams where I'm the junior guy. So, it's just kind of that thing of how you progress. And I'm more around teaching and mentoring now. So, do I want to be the guy that's always called to go solve the problem by putting code in and doing that? No, I want to be the guy that's teaching the guys that are learning what I do now. Okay, and ones I get to mentor and I help bring them along. I had some fantastic people in my life that helped me be the person I am, helped me learn the things that I've learned, and have, I want to say in a way to responsibly put guardrails up around me to make sure that my bullheadedness didn't take me down the wrong path. But they helped me get a good, firm understanding of what it means to be in leadership, what it means to be a mentor, what it means to teach when it comes to helping younger people move ahead with their career aspirations. And maybe they start down this path and they choose something different. I did. I started, as a firefighter, and it didn't turn out so well. But I'm now in IT, and I've had several different jobs in IT. All of them titled a little different, but if you look real close, it's all kind of doing the same thing.
So, you mentioned that one day you would like to run your own department, and that you've been the senior guy and you've been the junior. Can you describe what a typical department does look like? Who would you typically report to? Maybe how many people are at your level or below?
That is a complete aspect of business. So I'll say it like this: there are large companies out there, and then there are small companies. All of them are structured similarly. Like they all have an HR department, or they have someone doing HR work. They all have a finance department or someone doing finance work. Account receivable, account payable, because every company has to make money in some way, shape, or form. And then you'll have an IT part, right? And in IT, in my current workplace, there's over 200 of us in IT. My previous
Wow.
workplace, there was 30. In the workplace before that, there was 9. Depends on the size of the company, but all IT serves a function to business or a purpose for business. I provide a service. I provide data services to my business customers. My business customers happen to be the application teams, and I provide data service for reporting for business decisions. So I kind of serve a lot of different ranks and roles. But in my world, you usually have what they call individual contributors, or the people that are doing heavy lifting, the ones that type and bang out code and build stuff. And you'll have a manager right above them, or a supervisor, whatever title they get. And they're responsible for the day-to-day stuff. We do what's called a stand-up. You get we do this 15-minute meeting with my team. There's 5 of us on the team, and the object is, what did you do yesterday? What are you planning to do today? And are there any roadblocks keeping you from being able to function in this role and be successful? When you hear a roadblock, the manager takes the roadblock thought process and says, what's causing the problem? How can I help him be successful or her be successful? That's the way we use it. Now, you can go from a manager to a director to VP, VP to CIO or a C-suite. That's a little complex. That's in big business. C-suites are they're over top of multiple areas. They're kind of like generals. Generals have colonels and people in military rank and file. You can have just a president of a company and then, hey, you're the IT guy for that company, and you're it. You're the one-stop shop. They depend on you for everything. Or you can do like my company and have multiple areas, multiple specialized groups, very siloed, very specific to what function you serve to the bigger goal, which is, like we'll use e-commerce as an example. E-commerce is Amazon's e-commerce site. You go out on Amazon, you want to buy something, right? Well, guess what? Amazon has hundreds, if not thousands of people working for them to make sure that when you click on that thing and you buy that thing sits in goes to your cart. They make sure everything gets cut, make sure the distribution center gets everything. That's all IT driven processes. Okay. But in the end, a logistics guy gets the order and has to put it in a box and put it on a truck, and someone has to send it, and someone has to deliver it. There's lots of avenues and aspects within business that aren't IT driven, but they're also influenced by IT in reverse. If I don't do my job right, I might send the product to the wrong place. And guess what? Everybody gets in trouble at that point. People are unsatisfied. So if I do my job well, no one knows my name, and the person who ordered their stuff gets their thing, and they don't have to worry about all the headaches of it. And that's why businesses do what they do. They put the layers of controls in place to make sure that the customer experience and the outcome is exactly what they expect. And there's a price tag associated to it. It's what they can afford, and they always try to make money.
So I don't think that a lot of people recognize that when I put something in my Amazon cart, it just doesn't go to the logistics guy. That there is IT behind that with programming and formulas, and I don't even know exactly what goes into it, but it certainly just doesn't show up at the warehouse.
Today. Listen, here's the interesting part of it, right? There's a database back there that told them they had inventory, and when you put it in your cart and you paid for it, it sent a command to the database and said, remove that from inventory or reduce the number by 1 or 5 or whatever you bought. And then all of that has methods and processes that generate the invoicing, the packing label. Someone gets a command to go get it off the shelf from somewhere because it's sitting someplace. And then they grab it off the shelf, they put it in a box, they package it all up, they tape it. Some of these systems are all automated. Human hands never touch it. But at some point, someone's got to put it in a truck, and someone's got to get it out of a truck and put it on your porch or give it to you. That's just the way it works, and it is a lot of steps to do that. But my parents' company, the only thing they do is put their invoicing. They bill from a system, they get a check, they put it in their system, and they cut their payroll checks out of the system, and that's all they use. They don't order anything, they don't go anything extraordinary, but they're a small company compared to Amazon's in the world.
Right. Wow. Well, definitely a lot to think about. And it sounds like a lot of opportunities for folks, whether they're 18, coming out of school, thinking about what route they might want to go in college, or 30, already having a background in another field but are interested in this. Sounds like there's plenty of opportunities out there, especially in Columbus, for people who are interested in this.
I would encourage anybody, no matter the age, take a direction, pick an avenue. If you don't like it, you can move, you can change. Your education is never going to fail you. I mean, that's the one thing I learned. I learned it the hard way. Look, I was a hard-headed Pittsburgher. Okay, I was like, I could do that job. I don't need a college education. They realize I'm smart enough and they could do it. That was me speaking from ignorance, and that was a lack of understanding, lack of knowledge, not stupidity. It was just I didn't know any better. And I encourage people today, get your education, but pick a responsible school to go to. I'm against expensive colleges. My wife and I couldn't afford it with 2 kids for me to go to a big name school and me incur $100,000 worth of debt. I just couldn't do it.
Right.
It was irresponsible of me. I picked a college that I did well in. I got, if I was to tell you that for me to go to a certification class right now, it costs around $3,000 to do it remotely. If I went there, it would cost me about $5,000. You'd have to go, stay at a hotel, airfare, food, you pick it. So you can spend between $3,000 and $5,000 to get one IT certification. One. Now, when I came out of school, I had 12.
Wow.
Bachelor's degree and 12 IT certifications. That's why I picked the college I went to. And I'm going to tell you right now that I did it for under $40,000.
Wow.
So when you look at some of the colleges today and you're like, why? The why is real simple. You need the degree to speak to who you are and what you're capable of. But I didn't need the big Ivy League school name and a bachelor's degree to do what I'm doing.
Right. Yeah, I
So
think that's a great piece of advice. The name of the school might be interesting to tell folks that you went there or to have it on the paper, but really the education that you received and someone that might go to Brown.
Right.
They're
When I interviewed, I've done many a job interview. Not only have I actually been interviewed, but I've interviewed people for roles. Where they went to college might have some impact on the quality of education they get. I understand it. But when you look at the quality of education and you're considering against their ability, you really have to dissect into the fact that I've read college backgrounds that I've got my bachelor's in history, but I'm working in IT. And I'm like, you can learn, you have study, you have technique, you have method, you're dedicated. Totally understand that. Do you understand anything about the role you're applying for? That's a different question. And the answer can be no. I'm entrance level. I want to learn it. That's an acceptable answer. I don't like the people who fake it to make it. Okay. Be honest. We were having this conversation with my team just not too long ago, and I got complimented. I have a philosophy when it comes to work. It's called HOT. It's honest, it's open, and it's transparent. Honest with what you can and cannot do. Open to having advice and giving advice, and be transparent to whatever is going on. If you make a mistake, admit it. Okay? If someone has done great, acknowledge it. Don't be that guy that hoards the kudos and always point your finger. Don't do that. It's a bad thing. And honestly, you're entering the work field and you're going to be on a team. You're going to be a team member. If the Marines taught me anything, it's about the man next to you. It's to your right, to your left, to your front, to your back. You do your job to help them. And in turn, they help you. In business, it's the same thing. Your team members are they're your foundation, your control, your helpmates. Because if you're not good at something and one of your teammates is exceptional at it, guess what? They're going to teach you, or they're going to help you, and you're going to learn. And back to that education piece, I'm always learning. Some of the people I work with are the most brilliant people I've ever met. And I look at them and I'm like, how in the world did you get all this knowledge? And they got it the same way I did. Hard work, dedication, and continuing education. I still learn. I read books constantly. And I go down that path of what don't I know and how can I make myself better? And I had a really fantastic person give me this piece of advice. He said, every day you get up, attempt to do better than the day before. And if you live that way, you're really honest with yourself and you live that way. Even if you had a bad day yesterday, today can be an exceptional day because you didn't have the bad day, you're just doing better. And if you fall down and you get up, you're still making progress because you still have to stand back up and move. And just don't stay down. Even if you're struggling, one day at a time, one exercise at a time, one homework assignment, one class at a time, 1 hour at a time. But don't be discouraged. Life will go on. Tomorrow has enough worries of itself. Worry about today. Keep moving forward. All right, I got all my accolades on.
Well, there certainly are a few things I want to touch on. I absolutely love that acronym, HOT. I think sometimes it's hard for us to Be honest when we make a mistake, or be honest that I don't know what to do here. Can you help me through this?
Oh yeah.
Kind of trying to fake it, trying to scramble, figure it out on our own. I think that's the go-to, but I think being honest about and open with our employer and our team, it can really be to our benefit. And it shows others that we do want to learn, that we're open to learning and being honest. Hey, I don't know this, but I want to know this. Please show me. I think it's hard to do sometimes, but I think it's definitely the right thing to do.
In technology specifically, we make a joke is you want the right personality fit on your team, and you'll work to educate them. You don't want someone on your team that's going to bring the team down. Someone that's so contrary to the environment. Candor, that's another one. That's an important word in my vocabulary, candor. You have to be candid. You don't have to be brutal. You just be candid. And that's part of that openness and that transparency. And not afraid to show your vulnerability. I had one of the books that I learned from, I went to work for a director friend of mine. She enticed me to come on to her team, and I took the role. The day I started, she handed me a book, and it was 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. I make a joke about it because I'm like, this, why do I need to read this to come work for you? This doesn't make any sense. And after I read it, her and I sat down and we talked. And I had some bad habits. I wasn't actively listening. I might have been the guy that was on my cell phone in a meeting, or typing on my keyboard while I was in a meeting, or thought I was multitasking and really wasn't. And that was important for her to teach me that I'm the guy that they're looking for answers, and I need to be listening, and I need to be responsible, and I need to make sure that I'm doing effective communication. You can't do that if you're stuck on your devices and all that. One of the principles in the book is about teamwork and trust. Another one is about accountability and the ability to show your vulnerable side. And the principles in the book are really simple. I think he calls it a fable. It's like a business fable or something like that. But what it is a hypothetical circumstance where a company has the best people in it, like the world best, and the company's failing. How can you have the best and still fail? And it answers the question exactly the way you need to hear it. You can have the best people around you, but if people don't trust each other, or they're not working well together, or they don't bond, or they don't come together well, you're never going to succeed. So I look at it as a foundation of trust. You have to trust in the team. And to do that, there's a lot of little pieces that you have to do. And if you think about any relationship or any friendship you're in, you start with a foundation of giving trust or gaining trust, and then you build on it. Teamwork in business is the exact same way. You have to build on a foundation of trust.
I'm really glad that you brought up this book, because that was also something I wanted to touch on, that you mentioned a few of the certificates for our youth and young adults that maybe they could get started. And this definitely sounds like a book that they could read too. Do you have another recommendation for our youth and young adults for a book that they should read?
My mom and a very close friend of ours gave me Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People when I was younger. It doesn't matter what age you are or what year you're in. The principles that are in that book, and you can get it on Audible. I know it's on a friend of mine, 3 master's degrees, and he listens to everything. He doesn't read much. He just listens to everything. And I joke about it, but you can, if you're an Audible person, or you have to hear it, not necessarily read it. All the books that I would give in this simple thing are Stephen Covey's bit. There's some key principles in there. 1, your realm of influence. Know where you have influence and where you don't. Don't waste effort outside of where you don't have any influence. Give yourself a break. You know, we work too hard and there's too much going on to worry about something you have absolutely no way of influencing in any way, shape, or form. The other piece of there that I gained out of that was seek first to understand before being understood. If I was to give any bit of advice to young people, it's like, listen, try to understand what the person in front of you is telling you or what the group is telling you. And then after you've done that, take some notes, then interject. Allow people to have a voice, allow people to speak. And while there are certain dumb questions out there, most of the questions are not. And if you don't understand something, you're allowed to ask clarifying questions. And that leads me to one last book, and this is a really long title. I even wrote it down so I could share it. It's the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership by John Maxwell.
Okay.
Even if you're not a leader, they're fantastic principles to understand so that when you are under a good leader, you learn what they're doing for you and how they're doing it. And they're going to mentor you and grow you to make you into the leader that they want you to be. I have two amazing mentors that help me, and others that have helped me over the years. If I was to give advice from that perspective, is that you don't have to know the answer to every question, but be willing to go seek it. You are to always be selfless and don't seek glory for yourself. Make sure that the work you do makes your team shine, makes your leadership shine, and in turn, you will shine. And if you do that, you'll find favor. Favor being that thing that when the really fun projects come up, where the things that you really want to work on are out there, people are going to remember the personality, and they're going to say, yeah, I want him on my team, or I want him on this project. And then you win. That's a big win. It's a huge win. And that comes from understanding and applied principles.
That's great. So you did touch on a few things there, and I wanted to circle back.
Go ahead.
You mentioned that you were part of interviews, that you were actually the one interviewing people.
Yes.
And you mentioned some good qualities just now. What are some qualities that you or someone looking to hire for a database administrator, what qualities do you look for in a candidate?
Well, I came to an interview in a suit, even though it's virtual. I basically gave up the tie because you told me it was okay. But dress well to show respect. If you start there, I have been on an interview where I am in a suit and a tie, dress shoes, dressed to the nines, ready to go, and everyone in the room is in t-shirts, shorts, and flip-flops. And I'm not kidding.
Wow.
He was in the same as the director, as the managers, and the employees that I met with. And I'm in a suit.
Wow.
They insisted I take my tie off, so I did. Okay, but the point is that you may go to work for a company that t-shirts, shorts, and flip-flops are common. Do not show up for an interview like that. I heard a story about Steve Jobs not ever hiring someone that showed up for a job wearing that. You can do a little research to understand what the expectation is, but whoever's calling you to have the interview, ask them what's acceptable. And then if it's expected that you show up in, just a collared shirt and slacks and that's fine. But always dress for the part. Come prepared. Bring a notepad. Bring several copies of your resume. Okay? Because what happens is we pull people into interview processes and they don't have a copy of your resume. It gives them something to read. And if somebody didn't get something, you have it readily available to you. Make sure you have a reference sheet with you. I recommend people don't put them on their resume. Just have them. You can pass off when you're leaving. And come prepared to understand the company you're interviewing with. Have a little bit of background with it. Get a little bit of that advanced knowledge before you walk in the room. You may not be able to prepare for all the questions, but what I would tell you is practice a few of the responses that are normal. Who are you? Why do you want a job here? What are you bringing to the table? What do you think you can do? And if you're coming in an entrance level job, come in and answer the question with, I'm excited, I want to work, this is a field I'm looking forward to being involved in, this is an entrance level, I can't wait to get better understanding of it, and show some enthusiasm to it. Don't come in dejected, don't get fearful. You don't have any fear. You're already past the hard part. You're in the door. Someone wanted to meet you, someone wanted to talk to you, someone's prepared to have a conversation with you, and treat it like a conversation. Like today, we're having this conversation. I didn't have anything other than the 3 books that I wanted to talk about because we had talked about it. But aside from that, this is all off the cuff. It's comfortable. It's a conversation back and forth. Do the same in your interview. Don't be too casual. Be formalized in the mindset that you are really looking at your potential boss or bosses, and be honest, open, and transparent. You're allowed to say I don't know, because I know I don't know is a normal response, but I have an expectation that if you tell me I don't know, I want to hear what you're going to do next, which is I'm going to go try to figure that out. Hey, do you want me to figure that out? I can go look into that. That shows that you're wanting to work and you're doing a job and you're making an effort. Interviews the same way. Hey, I don't know a lot about this subject matter, but I've seen interviews, I've talked to people, I've seen some videos, I've read some stuff, and I'm really thinking this is somewhere I want to be. Entrance level job, that's a big win. 1, you have a personality. 2, you're communicating well. 3, you're showing enthusiasm and you want to get better. And a point I made earlier, be better today than you were yesterday. And if you work towards that, it's going to show. Interview,
Awesome.
don't the other thing, don't lie, don't fudge, don't walk in. Bad experience for me interviewing a guy who on his resume absolutely lied, absolutely made up stuff, and 5 minutes into the interview, it was transparent. I mean, it was very apparent. And then that's an hour of my time. I just met a guy that there's no way I would hire him. I don't trust you. And you would not be able to win trust with me because you already lied on the first day that you came in to see me. Don't do that. Don't be a pretender. Come in. If you're not really experienced in the field, it's okay. They wanted to interview you anyhow. Your resume gave it to them. Don't put anything on your resume that isn't you. It isn't true. And have a resume. That's another, I didn't think about that, but young people, get a resume. I would recommend to you also to build a LinkedIn profile. I can't count how many job people have contacted me. Hey, you looking for work? Not right now. All based on the fact that I had a presence on the internet that had the keywords in it that were what I do. And people find you. You don't even have to be looking for a job. People will look for you. Right. Young age, if you have your LinkedIn profile, if you have your well-defined resume, and I would ask you that once you build your resume, have some people you trust look at it that actually have some background, and or some of the professional services out there will write your resume for you. If you can afford it and you can invest in a company that will do resumes. Here in Columbus, there's several of them. They'll help you build a resume. They'll interview you. They'll write down all your skills and sets. They'll help you define what a resume looks like and put it in a way that when you give it to a company, they can search it. It makes sense, and it'll be curtailed to what you're trying to do.
Awesome. Those are some great tips for our youth and young adults. Even if they aren't necessarily interested in database administration, but for any career.
Absolutely.
Those are awesome universal tips. We have time for a few more questions, and one question I wanted to ask, you seem very passionate about what you do, and you mentioned working more than 40 hours a week doesn't always feel like work, right, because you enjoy what you do. But have you came across any obstacles in your career, and how did you face those?
Oh, that's a long laundry list. Okay, so let's do it this way. Obstacles or opportunities, whatever word you want to put in there. There's always opportunities to grow. So I'm going to use it from a growth standpoint. When I was in my career, young in my career, my communication style was really bad. Um, I used words like stupid and dumb, and that was ridiculous, and it was just negative words. And what I found out was that was more about me than it was about the person I was speaking to or the circumstance I was speaking about. And I had a really good leader, a really good person, a person I'm friends with to this day, draw it to my attention. And one of my obstacles was, you're not an effective communicator. You kind of you're brash. You're very hard. You're very gruff. And I was a fireman. Remember that? If you ever listen to a true fireman talk, it's not very nice and it's not polite, and there's some very colorful language in there. I had to learn to remove that from me, and I had to remember my audience, and I had to remember that I had to extend grace to any bad circumstance. So my career headaches were always around big problems where I thought in my head that was kind of, why did that happen? That shouldn't happen. If you're doing your job right, it shouldn't happen. We all make mistakes. And I have to extend grace just as much as sometimes when a mistake's mine, I would like to receive grace.
Right.
I am not about justice when it comes to a role. I'm looking more about mercy and grace because we're human. We make mistakes. And circumstances where you planned for the best and the worst happened. And you didn't see it coming. And all of a sudden, you're the focus of everyone's attention. Very specific circumstance. I put a bad piece of code into place and it wiped out an entire database. It took 2 days to fix it. And it wasn't just me that was fixing it. It was like 10 other people. So guess who had egg on their face? In a bad company, you could have got fired for that. You'd have lost your job instantaneously. In a good company, they understand that mistakes happen and they extend grace. If you're in a company where they're always trying to put the blame on you, polish your resume and go find another job. Because you don't quit jobs, you're quitting leadership. You're really quitting bad leadership. And I would tell you that obstacles are always going to be in front of you. You need to learn from your mistakes. You need to seek understanding in all circumstances. And if you can't get your head around it, you need to get help to get your head around it. And young people, when you're coming into an entrance level job, you're almost always teamed with a senior level person. Leverage them. You may annoy them or seem like you're annoying them, and maybe you are, but their job is supposed to be teaching you. And
Right.
you can be gracious about, hey, I realize I'm upsetting you, but can you help me understand this so that I don't have to bother you anymore? I'll say it once, and I'll give you the advice twice, but on the second time I give it to you, I'm going to make you take a note. And if you come back a third time, the first thing I ask is, where's your notepad? Now, that's my way of saying, hey, I taught it to you once. I even taught it to you a second time, and you took notes. So where's the notes? Do you have the notes?
Right.
If you don't, we're going to do notes again, and we're going to do this again. And then every time this circumstance comes up, I'm going to give it to you. It's coming to you. And I prepare people, right? I set an expectation, and I'm trying to do that. And honestly, it's when I wasn't prepared for the expectations of others that obstacles came all the time. I didn't hear them properly. I didn't understand it. Key thing for me is reformulating questions. If a question comes across and it's ambiguous, means it's not clear, restate it in your own words and ask them if you're right. That would be a huge way to kind of put focus back on what the actual outcome you want. And what I found was in a circumstance where that happened, the person didn't really understand what they wanted, but they were pushing me to get a result. And I needed to understand what they wanted because I need to deliver the requirements, not my understanding.
Awesome. Well, those are definitely great pieces of advice and definitely a great way to look at obstacles, that they're opportunities.
Yeah.
How can you make the situation better?
Right. And don't take things personally. Young, ignorant me always took it personally because in the household I grew up in, it was always personal anyhow. And not understanding what that looked like in business, you always, even if you're a perfectionist, learn not to take it personal. Learn that perfection's, you're not going to hit perfection. You're going to make mistakes. Things are going to happen. So first time you hit a mistake, throw the perfectionist out because you lost. It's already done. Get rid of it. And then grow with the opportunity. And if I was to encourage young people, and once you get the job, once you're there, look for things that are interesting to you. What I found is that uh, you you look for the opportunities that you want so that you shine the way you want to. And it's kind of that mindset of dress for the role you want. And if a guy shows up in a Batman outfit, they're not really fit for the role. That was a joke about where I was. I was nicknamed Batman. We worked in the basement. Um, uh, the only time I got called was when bad things were happening. I usually came in,
Oh,
fixed the problem, got out, and no one knew I was there. So
wow.
my managers was like, "You're Batman," and I'm telling you, it went beyond that. Like, someone made me a bat light. I had a boomerang in my office. My lanyard was Batman, and I took it. I took it and ran with it. So when I left that company, I handed off all the Batman memorabilia to the person that I was mentoring. I said, "All right, you're Batman, or you're Batwoman." It was a woman at that point. I was like, "You're a Batwoman. Enjoy it. Have fun." You officially got all the ranks. But you can do that at work. You can have some fun and still work. Make some good relationships and friendships. You're going to carry them with you for a lifetime. Don't burn bridges. Do not burn a bridge. Always leave graciously. Always give a 2-week notice. I don't know. These are just little tidbits I'm thinking of. But you know what? Business knows you're growing and you're moving. And in IT, years ago, they called them bunny hoppers. So people take a job, be there for a year, to leave. Companies invested all this money and then boom, they left, right? But in today's day and age, people understand that, a 2-year commitment to a job is kind of normal. A little longer, whatever. I'm tend to be a little longer because I like to learn more and understand things better. But don't don't jump into a job and jump out of a job. Get into a job, learn everything in, and then move toward the position that you want to further your career. Don't jump just for money, ever. Jump for the benefits that you're going to get in the job that you're taking to move you ahead in your career focus.
Awesome. Thank you, Frank. Those are some awesome pieces of advice for our viewers today. And that wraps us up for today, folks. Thank you again, Frank, so much for joining
Oh,
us.
you're welcome.
Do you have any last words for our youth? I know you touched on quite a few great things for them today, whether it was just general information for them for their resume and interviewing, or specifically for database administration. But any last piece of advice for them?
Yeah, I mean, I think I made a point to tell them that education's important, but be yourself. Don't be fake. Okay. And work hard. Um, uh, the honest day's work for an honest day pay mentality is kind of old school, but work as if everybody's watching. Okay, but they're not, right? I think it's that character piece, right? Good character people will be, they'll even though no one's watching, they're going to do the right thing. And in business and in any job position you ever have, work so that everyone around you benefits. Work hard, offer advice, offer to help, and be positive. Be positive in your day. I made mistakes early in my career where I was a little bit of a negative guy, and it was really bad, and it didn't turn out well. And I ended up having to move around a little bit. But again, that was my ignorance, not understanding where the benefits were. If I'd have saw somebody telling me, be positive in what you do, and remember that you're allowed to make mistakes and whatnot, I think that's important. And when you're interviewing, make sure that the person you're interviewing with and the people you meet line up with your principles, line up with your character requirements. Make sure that you like them, because your investing in this as much as they're investing in you. So don't take a bad job just because. Look for the job that works well for you, and you'll grow and you'll benefit from it. And that's about summed up. There's a ton of information in this interview, but that would be where I would go.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again, Frank. We've really enjoyed talking to you. We'll definitely post some notes in the comments for our youth and young adults watching today. So thank you, Frank, again, and we will see you next week on A Walk in My Shoes for a new guest star.